Hi friends. So, still bored. In honor of the school year pretty much being over, according to the governor, and me kind of ending high school, I thought I would make a video about just my experience. With the way things are ending, it's kind of hard to reflect like everyone else has been. Me at the beginning of my freshman year and me where I am now is just two totally different people, and just high school went from being really normal to being really insane very quickly. That was only in like not even 3 years, which I'll explain a little bit. So yeah, let's go. So my freshman year, I went into it being super social coming out of middle school. Just everything was about friends. You know, I took school seriously, like I did my homework, but I wasn't like really crazy about my grades. Dating boys and all of this stuff started to happen, and I think like my happiness overall was good. Like there wasn't anything I was upset about, there wasn't anything I was like overjoyed about. I was kind of just there a little bit, just having a good time. In the fall, I had my friends that I came into high school with from middle school, and you know, because of that, we were also kind of younger in that younger mindset. There was still kind of the friend group drama. I was still into that. I was also playing volleyball, so that was kind of like a big time commitment adjustment for me. The winter was pretty uneventful, but then in the spring I started to get more serious about school. I was like setting goals for that semester, being like I want to get these certain grades, and then that spring break is when I went to Seattle with my family. And that's kind of when like the travel bug happened, and I kind of just started really becoming passionate about travel. It was a different feeling this time. It just hit different. The summer after my freshman year, I met a bunch of new friends and I was having a really great time with them. You know, we were a little bit older then, and so the whole friend group drama kind of went away, which I think was sort of a sign of me growing up, you know, meeting new people, being a little bit more mature. And then also that summer, on a different note, I have family in Philadelphia, and so I was visiting them, and my dad took me to visit the University of Pennsylvania. I think at that point I started to have this big dream of like going to an Ivy League school one day, which at the time seemed normal. Coming from a competitive high school, I was like, oh, this is what everyone's thinking about. And then going into my sophomore year, that kind of turned out to be a little bit unhealthy, because that's not the best way to think. In my sophomore year, socially, I was still with the friends that I made that summer. I was still hanging out with friends, definitely not as much as my freshman year. And that was kind of because I just became like so overly invested in academics. I definitely had some really amazing moments my sophomore year, definitely, but I think overall it was kind of a harder year. Going into the fall, it was one of my hardest transitions back to school. It was kind of like a chaotic transition back to school. I started working more this year. I started coaching soccer for this little kid's soccer company, and I started babysitting some more. Then in the fall, I also had my 16th birthday, which was really fun. Me and my friends went out to dinner together, and we had bundt cakes and like played cards in my basement and it was a really fun, like genuine moment with them, you know, during a year when I was just so like not focused on genuine moments, just so obsessed with the little things kind of. Late October and November, things got really hard with just constantly thinking about school, only being in the moment and not in a good way. The winter, things finally got interesting. This opportunity came around in my school. They offered us a trip to go to Northern Ireland for 6 students to learn about their sectarian conflicts, and I was just like freaking out about this because, you know, from the previous year, from going to Seattle, I had really started to become interested in traveling and just everything that comes along with that. And so this was something that I wanted so badly, and I remember spending so much of October, November, December just worrying about this and like wanting this so bad. In mid-December, honestly, just at the bottom of things, it was about to be finals. I was just having a pretty crappy time, honestly, and then I found out that I was going to be going on the trip, and it just like made my life. It really did, because I just had nothing to look forward to, because I finally had something to strive for, something to be passionate about. Socially, I was still dating this guy from freshman year. Kind of broke up, got back together. Things just like started to get weird around this time. Then in the spring, over spring break, is when I went to Northern Ireland. That trip was just a really amazing experience for me. We learned so much about the history there, but also I met so many students from there, and also got to know people, you know, from my own high school better than I ever thought I would. It really turned around my perspective on a lot of things. And obviously on this trip is also when I met Theo. During this trip we got to know each other, and towards the end of it, it was definitely clear that like we didn't want to just go our separate ways, you know, like we found something special in each other and we wanted each other to be in our lives somehow, and we didn't really know what that meant at the time. So I left the trip. It was really sad and, you know, things were kind of not really tied up at that point. I got back home. Another really hard transition. I broke up with my boyfriend. I was going back and school was one thing, you know, but I also had so much else going on in my life that I was so passionate about. I was getting to know this new person from a different place. And definitely over those next couple months is when we kind of like developed into something more. That period of my life was definitely still hard because I was still struggling with anxiety surrounding school and kind of figuring out where I wanted to be in the next couple years, and this whole obsession I had over, you know, going to some really prestigious school one day. The summer after my sophomore year was really great. I worked at a summer camp, which was fun, and then I went and visited Theo, which was amazing. I begged my parents forever. I didn't go alone. My dad and my brother came with me. I stayed with them in an Airbnb for some of it, stayed with Theo's family for some of it, and we just had such an amazing time. We spent every day together. I got to become so familiar with Belfast, which is, you know, so far from home, but it just doesn't feel that way anymore. We got to go to Scotland, Galway, and Dublin together, and then obviously just like spending all of our time together, and it was so much fun. Leaving that too was a really hard transition because we kind of knew at the end of the summer that we wouldn't be seeing each other for another 5 months until Christmas, which was hard to deal with definitely, because you're like, this is such a great person in my life and now I have to go back home but you can't come with me, and so that was really hard to sort of get over and transition back home, but we did it. And it was fine. And then obviously my junior year started. Socially, I hung out with friends like the least I had my whole high school career. But, you know, that was kind of up to me. I was putting so much emphasis on school, not as much as I had in the past year, not in an unhealthy way, but I was really, had my goals and was really focused on my academics, and I kind of regret that looking back now. And then, like I said, academically, things were insane. Like, it's junior year and it was busy. It was manageable, but, you know, I was definitely tired. I wasn't so invested like I was before, which was great. I finally just took a moment and was like, it's fine. And then I was just like so much happier this year than I have ever been. You know, I have my home and I have my life and everything going on here, but it's like amazing also having Theo and then my future to look forward to, which is where developments really started happening here. So in the fall, everything, like I said, got really busy. I just remember really distinctly this one day back in September maybe, and I came to my mom and I was just so overwhelmed with everything that was going on in school and having this other life with Theo and thinking about the future with him and everything. And I just remember telling her, like, I don't want to do another year of high school after this. Like, I need, you know, I'm ready, I'm mature enough, like I need to go off and do something else after this. And so that's when I kind of decided that I wanted to graduate early, which was like not, I mean, when I say decided, it's like, it's something that I decided I wanted to try and do, but just that path to get there is huge, and that was a really big deal. And so the fall of my junior year was really preoccupied. It was like, okay, Theo, school, and then applying to college and like just all of these different things going on top of, you know, the insanity that junior year usually takes on was really crazy. Then of course I had my 17th birthday, which was really fun. I went to the city with some of my friends and we saw a comedy show at Second City, and then we got burgers from this really good place called Small Cheval. So good. And that was a really good time. And again, it just felt like a more genuine moment in all of like the crazy stuff that was happening in my life. Then in the winter, I'm really more seriously thinking about graduating early. The whole year I had been thinking about how I could make that happen, but there's really a lot to it and it was really complicated and I didn't know if I could make it work, which was also hard because it was something that I wanted really badly to happen, but it was just, there's so many moving pieces, it's really hard to know if it's gonna work out. So basically in the winter I scheduled to visit this school weekend before finals, literally like the last possible moment to do this. I went, I ended up completely loving it, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna make this happen. I need to figure this out, like if they can accept me, what credits I still need. I work with my counselor and they figured everything out for me, and we figured out that if I took these certain credits, if I took English online, that I would be able to graduate that year, which was a huge deal because again, it's something that I had been thinking about since the beginning of the year. I just felt like I was breaking out of high school kind of, and I was just ready for something new. And at that point to be like, okay, it can happen was just huge, but obviously I still had to apply to college at that point, which itself is just a big deal. And then that holiday break, Theo came and visited me after literally 5 months of us not seeing each other. I was so nervous. I think we both were, because it was just a crazy time. First of all, because I'm like applying to college, graduating early, like school, and just I'm tired and I need to take a break. But then it's also like Theo's coming and this is amazing. But there was definitely a lot going on, and I think we agree now that that was a little bit of a crazy time for the both of us. But it was still a really great trip. The minute he left, I got on my computer. I was writing up my college essay. I literally stayed home from school the day that my application was due and got everything together, submitted it that day, which is like, I'm usually never that last minute, but my life was just so wild at that time that I could not get it all together. So I ended up submitting it January 8th on the dot, like that day. I spent the rest of January just very stressed, because it's like, okay, if I get into this school, then I'm going to college next year, right? And if I don't, then I'm staying another senior year here. And for me, it just felt like a really big deal, because I had hyped this up to be so big. You know, I was like, I'm ready to go, but ultimately it came down to if I got in or not. So because I applied early decision, I got my decision back at the end of January and I got in, and I just like was so overjoyed about it. Me and Theo were like crying on the phone together, and it was really exciting because it meant that, you know, everything I had been working towards that year was really, really paying off, and I was able to have a little bit more freedom and kind of choose my way at that point. I was meant to see Theo this spring over spring break, maybe almost a month ago now. That got canceled because of the coronavirus, and I just remember so vividly, like the week before school got called off because of what's happening. Just it being so tense in school. All you would hear people talking about, you know, walking down the hallway is the pandemic and the coronavirus and everything that was happening. And then eventually school got called off until April 14th. Then it got pushed back to May 1st, and now just the other day Governor Pritzker called it off in Illinois through the end of the year. So not that school's over, but obviously, you know, we're not having that same experience. I won't be able to walk on the stage and graduate with everyone, and even plans for next year are kind of up in the air. So there's a lot of uncertainty right now, definitely, but I just thought it would be fun to like make a video about all of high school and about how much my life has really changed and how much I've changed. So I hope this was entertaining. Definitely gave me something to do on this boring Monday. Bye!